This episode of Faces of Grand Prairie podcast is brought to you today with the help of these wonderful local business sponsors. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any of the upcoming great interviews. Jenna Pecor is a Realtor with Bancroft Realty and a proud member of the Arlington Board of Realtors. She's been helping people with their real estate goals in Grand Prairie for over 10 years, with a specialty in liquidating the estates of seniors. In today's real estate market, you need an agent with negotiation skills and experience with current market trends who'll be able to confidently guide you through your transaction. Jenna is that Realtor who can make it happen for you one step at a time. Call Jenna at 214-558-4410 for a free consultation if you're thinking about buying or selling a home. Coffee News is a weekly publication delivered to restaurants, coffee shops, hotels, and anywhere people go to have a bite to eat or wait for service. Everything in Coffee News is fun and entertaining. It is a breath of fresh air for millions of readers tired of hearing only bad news. Coffee News is always positive. At Coffee News of Grand Prairie, their mission is to help small and medium-sized local businesses grow with affordable, exclusive advertising. This means that your ad is being viewed every day. Coffee News editions are placed in businesses where people are waiting for food and service. The distribution locations are chosen carefully to ensure you have the largest viewing audience. With exposure 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, your ad reminds current clients and customers to return to your business for products or services while constantly creating interest for potential new clients or customers. Go to coffeenewsgp.com to learn more. Honor Guard Flags is a flag rental service that delivers American flags to your home or business for the 4 patriotic holidays: Memorial Day, which is coming up on May 26th this year, Independence Day, Labor Day, which is September 1st, and Patriot Day, which is 9/11. They can also deliver for special occasions or events. Honor Guard Flags is a veteran-owned Grand Prairie business. The owner has grown up here in Grand Prairie, and this is a business he feels very passionate about. I happen to know him personally, and this is such a good fit for him, and it's a family-run business. It's a great opportunity to get your flag in your yard for the upcoming Memorial Day, which is going to be happening in a few weeks. So go ahead and call 469-616-1732, or you can email honorguardflags@gmail.com to get your service started for the year. My Jennarocity Estate Sales has been providing estate liquidation services in Grand Prairie since 2015. They are a trusted member of the Grand Prairie community and a proud affiliate of the Arlington Board of Realtors. Jennarocity Estate Sales specializes in helping adult children through the emotionally difficult process of liquidating a loved one's estate and helping seniors downsize for their next phase of life. To find out more about their services or follow their upcoming sales, go to mygenerosityestatesales.com. Today's Grand Prairie Nonprofit Spotlight goes to Grand Prairie United Charities. They are dedicated to partnering with the community to empower families with hope, food security, and emergency financial assistance. They are committed to fostering a compassionate community where every family has the resources that they need to thrive. Their mission is to empower families by providing essential support through food distribution, emergency financial assistance, and a steadfast commitment to bringing hope to anyone who has fallen on hard times. Together, we all strive to build a better future for the members of our Grand Prairie community. They offer emergency assistance for rent and mortgage, shelter in the form of hotels for the homeless, utilities, electric, gas, and water, and an on-site choice food pantry, which I have personally worked in and volunteered for. Grand Prairie families can access their food pantry every 30 days. It's a wonderful charity. I've worked with them for quite some time, and I'm very glad to be spotlighting this organization today. Visit their website at gpuc.org to learn more about how you can volunteer or donate or even if you are in need of assistance, they can help you there as well. And now, on to our episode. Welcome, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking.
Well, tell us who are you and why are you here today?
My name is Ray Gene Bush, and I've been in Grand Prairie for a long time, but I moved out for a while. But I attended all 12 years here in Grand Prairie ISD, and I'm 77 years old, and got here in Grand Prairie as soon as I could, probably about in 1948, 49.
Wow.
My sister was actually born on Main Street here in Grand Prairie. They had a clinic here in Grand Prairie on Main Street, Plattner Clinic.
Really?
And so she was actually born right there on Main Street in Grand Prairie. So, and she's just 2 years younger than I am.
How long did that stay there, that clinic? I don't even remember ever talking about that.
It was only about the size of a house.
Really?
It wasn't a big clinic. It was just the size of a house. But, there weren't that many facilities in Grand Prairie. There weren't that many facilities in Arlington. You had to pretty much go to Oak Cliff to. I broke my arm before I was supposed to go into the day before I was supposed to go in the first grade. I broke my arm, and they ended up taking me to Oak Cliff area to get it fixed.
Oh my!
So
that's quite a trip. Because we didn't have hospitals or anything back then here. Well, we still don't.
Arlington Memorial was not here, and that was one of the first hospitals in the area.
So what brought your family to Grand Prairie?
My dad had worked in the oil fields out in West Texas, and my mom was just moving around and doing some clerical type stuff, I think, out of high school. Neither one of my parents have a college education. So my dad was working in the oil fields, and I think my dad decided to become a carpenter. And he came into a lot of a building boom here in Grand Prairie and Arlington, and residential and even, commercial levels.
Especially during the 40s.
And this was late 40s, early 50s, yes.
Mm-hmm. There's so many that were brought here because of Vought and working on the planes and all that.
That's right. And we moved in with my grandmother. My grandmother had a house over on Fairfax Street. Oh,
so she lived here already.
She lived here already, and I think they moved in with her. And so they were on Fairfax Street. And Fairfax Street is right over by where the old Fannin School used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that was right in the flight line there for the Naval Air Station. So we had aircraft coming overhead day and night.
Was it a big house?
No, it's only a 2-bedroom house. So, but I lived there, until 1959. In 1959, my parents bought a house in Inglewood.
Oh,
so I moved over to Proctor Street there in Inglewood.
And so where did you go to? Was there only one elementary school at the time?
No, there's a bunch of elementary schools.
There was,
but there's only 2 junior high schools. There was Lee and Jefferson. I had gone to Lee during that first 2 or 3 months of 1959, fall of 59, and then in November we moved to Inglewood, and then I went to Lee. And so I finished out junior high school at Lee and went on to Grand Prairie High School. And there was only one high school then.
Yes.
Only the Grand Prairie High School.
So how far south did the development in Grand Prairie go whenever you were in high school?
That was the last development. Inglewood was the last development. Anything on the south side of Cottonwood Park was pretty much out in the open, pretty much.
Cotton fields. Right?
Cotton fields, a lot of cotton fields, everything out, to Allspaw Lane and just towards what is now the lake area. The lake area is just all, it was just a big hole in the ground, so to speak. I mean, it wasn't a hole in the ground. It was just a big depression. A lot of, creeks running through there and stuff. So it was pretty neat. Pretty neat to grow up in that area.
I always love to ask people that grew up in Grand Prairie how far south the development went, because you can always tell kind of the decade.
I played Jenna. I played baseball all the way from little league to middle league, senior leagues, and Grand Prairie High School. But I lived in that Fannin area, which is the northeast area of Grand Prairie, and I played little league over at what is Falls Park
Mm-hmm.
now. It used to be just Cottonwood Park. That was the name before they named it McFalls. And so that was a long way over here. You know, it was 4 or 5 miles across town to get from the Fannin area over to Cottonwood Park. So that was kind of neat. That was you know, playing Little League back then was pretty neat.
And we didn't have Mike Lewis or anything at that point in time. Was it.
Did not have Mike Lewis. Mike Lewis, you know, no, that place down there on Cary was not even built.
Mm-mm. So which team, do you remember what team you played for?
I played for several different teams. I started out with Lone Star Boat team.
This is funny because I talked to, I think it was Gary Bartell, and we were teams didn't have names of like animals. It wasn't like the Lions or the Eagles. It was like named after the business that supported that team.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you had Lone Star Boats.
We had Lone Star Boat. I played for Grand Prairie State Bank. I played for there was Miller Drug, and Mathis Food Mart, Texas Electric Service Company.
Oh my goodness.
Rudy's. There was a place called Rudy's in town, which is a Mexican restaurant, which is on the corner of 14th Street in Jefferson, over there by the plant. They had a lot of plant clientele, customers come in there. So, I mean, Grand Prairie baseball was a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Grand Prairie and Arlington, Little League baseball was a good thing during the summer. And I played twice a week and just continued to play forever.
Now, did these businesses recruit individual kids, or did you just sign up and you got randomly put?
No, they actually had at Turner Park every year, they had a tryout.
Oh.
And the kids from all over the city came out and tried out, and these teams bid on the players that they wanted. And so a lot of times that coordinated, though, with the location where the kid was coming from, because you had to get to practice. And most of the kids did not have any kind of a ride or anything to practice. You had to ride your bicycle or walk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of the parents, even at that time, most of the parents were working.
Uh-huh.
So if you had to practice at 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you had to get there. You know, games being a little bit later in the evening was another story. You know, your parents usually were a part of that.
That's such a cool thing when I look back on those, because I have a subscription to newspapers.com, and it digitized all these old newspapers, which I love spending time reading the Grand Prairie Daily News. And I love seeing the pictures of all those kids on all those Little League teams. It's just very cool. Such a community event.
Well, you mentioned the paper. Even when I was in Vietnam, Jenna, I took subscription to the Grand Prairie Daily News.
Really?
I did, and they sent the paper over to me over in Vietnam. And, I would get it about a week late, but I was being caught up and current on Grand Prairie events all the time that I was in Vietnam.
That is so. I didn't know that they did that.
They did.
That's very cool.
They did.
Yeah, I love reading those papers. I would love to. One of my visions for this podcast is to turn it into a digital newspaper. So I send out like a monthly newsletter, but I love seeing wedding announcements. Yeah. I love seeing the classifieds. I would love to get to a place where people could apply for a job as a Grand Prairian, for a Grand Prairie company. And, I love seeing all that stuff with the kids and,
I even sent in an article to the Grand Prairie Daily News while I was in Vietnam, and had some pictures, and actually included some captions to those pictures and that sort of thing. So
my goodness!
I've still got those clippings. I've still got those things.
Oh, you need to send them to me. I'll put them on the episode maybe if you could find them. I wonder if I can find it. I could probably search newspapers.com and find your name.
You probably could
if you were a contributor.
You'd have to look for those three names though: Ray, Jean, Bush. Ruthie Jackson is, Georgia and I attended first grade together.
Oh, you did?
We were in the very first grade class together. So Ruthie Jackson was a room mother early on, and so
a surprise.
Ruthie knew me from day one, so to speak. Back when I was about 6 or 7 years old. So. She knew me as Ray Jean. She had me on her show a couple of times, and She would never call me just Ray Bush. It's always Ray Jean.
Ray Jean. I went back and looked at some of her old videos. They've got some of them on the city's website. Now, she had thousands of these interviews, but I'd love to go back, and all the titles are named after the date that they were recorded, not by the person that was in it. Yeah. I saw Georgia today at the YMCA breakfast. I told her, I said, I'd love to get my hands on those YouTube videos so that I could put the people's name, because there's a lot of people that I think would probably search for their family's interview.
She interviewed me. Ruthie interviewed me 2 or 3 times. I was on that show. It's happening in Grand Prairie, and that sort of thing. So I think she had 2 or 3 of those programs that Bob, was it Don? No, Don. Don actually recorded those things.
And her husband? No,
her husband was Vernon Jackson.
Vernon, that's right.
Vernon Jackson. In fact, Vernon Jackson and my dad, they played baseball together down in Central Texas back when they were younger.
Really?
Amazing. So, yeah.
What a small world.
Yeah, really.
So when you got to Grand Prairie, did you still continue to play sports in high school?
I played sports. I was on the varsity team in Grand Prairie. I was a pitcher. And so I pitched all the way from little league all the way into high school. But when I got out of high school, I played some hardball, but I started playing softball because there just weren't any hardball teams around.
Yeah, and adult leagues were a pretty big deal at the time too, like rec leagues and stuff.
I moved to Dallas in '72. Got married, moved to Dallas, and joined a church over there, and I got involved with some well done fast pitch softball, and that was really good. They had 4 or 5, half a dozen churches that they called the church majors or something like that, and man, they played some very competitive base softball.
I'd love to see that back too. Have church leagues.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
That was
good.
So you got married right after high school?
I got married after I got out of the service.
After you got out of the service.
I was single when I was in Vietnam, but I've got 2 sisters. Both of my sisters were Grand Prairie cheerleaders, younger than me. They didn't live up to their brother's expectations. I didn't hit that high claim. But they were high school cheerleaders. In fact, my sister Linda was Miss Jeep for a while.
Oh, really?
She was for a while. I mean, she was elected or voted to be Miss Jeep. So she and Georgia have that distinction of being Miss Jeep. Correct.
Wow. And when did they graduate?
My older sister Linda graduated in 1967, and my younger sister LaRue graduated in 1970.
So they were just a couple years older than my parents. My parents graduated 71 and 72.
Okay.
So do y'all have a reunion coming up?
We've got a reunion coming up. We've got a event coming up on May 3rd. It's a Saturday at Spring Creek Barbecue there in Westchester area. And that's from 11 to 2, kind of a luncheon, get together, social. Classmates can, bump heads and see each other and everything before we have our October 25th reunion here at the Epic.
That's awesome. This episode will be airing on the 30th because I knew that you had that event. So yes. I bumped it up. It's going to be that Wednesday. Okay. So they'll be able to still come if they hear it on the 3rd. So that's good.
That's good.
And then y'all are doing your reunion here on what day?
We're October 25th, and it'll be from 3 to 6 in the evening, I believe. And it's going to be in the warehouse room, and that's on the north end of the Epic over here. So I'm working with the committee on that. We got about 8 or 10, 12 people working on that. And,
that's good.
Getting T-shirts and postcards and all that stuff, getting ready to go.
And and what year reunion is this for y'all?
1965. It'll be 60 years.
60 years.
I can't imagine 60 years.
Have y'all gotten to the point where y'all started having them every year, like informal gatherings?
No. We're doing about 5 years apart. These things. I mean, last major thing we had was at 55.
Okay.
And so about 5 years. The classmates that want to see each other, they usually see each other.
Right.
The classmates that don't, and we've got some of those that they just want to stay in their own place and not do much of anything. But it's good for the guys that you've been friends with, and some of us have kept in touch, for a while. And, it's good to see them again.
Yeah, we have I was the person that organized my 20-year reunion. Well, with the help of a lot of other people, but it was a lot of fun. I always encourage people. I'm like, listen, I know that you don't want to go, but it is nice to kind of get back to where you grew up. I mean, those are friends that you've known for a long, long time. So it's always good to have reunions, even if people are nervous or they don't want to go or whatever.
Well, at the high school level, I mean, we all mature at different levels,
right?
And so those people that matured real early and in high school, a lot of them were very popular and that sort of thing. And then you got people that matured in their 20s, and even late 20s, and so sometimes it's hard for those people that had that notoriety early to come on and then realize they didn't maybe materialize in the same kind of style that they were in.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. So
I hope I put it.
No, I think that was good. So after school, is that when you were drafted? Was when you graduated?
I was drafted after high school. I went a couple of years to Arlington State College, became UTA while I was over there, and I didn't make very good grades. Got on scholastic probation. I mean, my first semester I was all right, but everything started dropping off. The Vietnam War was going, draft was going. I just didn't know if I was in the right place or not. But my grades suffered. Not that I was a great student anyway, but my grades suffered, and in the late summer of '68, I was drafted, and I thought, well, what can I do different than because I knew if I was drafted, I was going to go right into the infantry, and a lot of times that's just a ticket for a casket, it's just bad news. So I went down to the recruiter here in Grand Prairie and said, "What's available?" He said, "Well, everything's signed up for," and everything was at that time. Kids were trying to get in the National Guards and reserve units and all that sort of stuff, which kind of kept them out of the war in Vietnam, and other guys were going to Canada, that sort of thing. So I went down to here and said, "What you got available?" He said, "The only thing I've got available," he said, "you probably don't want to hear it because your draft is for 2 years enlistment." He said, "The only thing I've got is for an Army Security Agency, and it's for a 4-year enlistment." And I thought, I had to weigh things back and forth, but by joining into the Army Security Agency and that portion of the Army, I was able to select my own job, or military occupation and specialty, which is the MOS. And so I chose communications. And so I worked with, in Vietnam, I did teletype work all the time. I spent most of my time at a keyboard.
Really?
In Vietnam, right.
So for those that don't know, like how a draft actually works, I mean, I know that y'all have numbers. My dad missed his number. He always talks about that. His number was missed by like 1 or something like that. Because I mean, we haven't had a draft since. So how does that work? How often did they call the numbers?
I actually preceded the number system. The number system came into a few years later.
Oh, really?
I was just some kind of a general. If you didn't have an educational deferment, a college deferment, which is like a class 2 or something, you were of age, more likely you got drafted during that period.
So what did they do? Just called your names?
They just sent you a letter. And said, "Hey, report down to the induction center at so-and-so time." And, you go down there and you get your physical. And if you pass the physical, then they give you the haircut and send you off.
Wow. So they were just constantly just sending out letters. It wasn't like it was happening.
You had a draft board. There was a draft board in Dallas, and the draft board at that time was actually headed up by a lady by the name of Helen Bush. And I thought, well, Yeah. I was draft board number 26, and she was headed up by Helen Bush. And I thought, well, she's not going to draft me. She's got the same name as I do. But yes, she did. She did. They drafted me. And that's what, I guess, I don't know how many members that consisted of, Jenna, but that's kind of what they did. They went through who they had the options to call up, and they called them up. That's what it was.
So they did that for years, and then they had the number system came later. The number
system came up, and that worked where they had like a drawing for the numbers. And I don't know if they did that, if they drew by Julian date or birthday. It happened. It was birthday. It was my birthday, but I don't know whether they drew a Julian date, which is like a 135 or 266 or something like that.
Right.
I don't know how they did it, but they did it by dates, and so if you were drawn in the top 50 or 100 or something, you were pretty well sure that you were going to be called. Drafted. If you're in a low number, and they may be the reverse of that. If you're in a high number, you were getting called. If you're low, I don't know. I can't recall how it was, because by that time I was already in.
You were already there.
I was already in.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that was another question I was going to ask you is, when you get drafted, how long do you have before you have to report?
I had about probably 45 to 60 days before
okay.
I reported. It was late summer when I got my draft notice. I can't recall exactly what the date was when I got my draft notice, but I was working as I'd already kind of flunked out of college, and I was working as a beginning draftsman over in the Brook Hollow section of Dallas, and I got that notice, and so I had to, revisit what everything I was doing. So, but it worked out. I got back. I made it over there for a year and a half in Vietnam, and got back, and I was in a combat area for sure, but I was not in a combat role. I was in a support role.
Is that pretty typical that you could go to like your local draft place and kind of ask to be placed certain places?
Well, I mean, that was something that I did. I'm not sure everybody did that, but you could actually sign up after you got drafted. So that did give you some options that you didn't have with just accepting the draft.
Oh.
And at that time, they were actually drafting, and they were sending people to both the Marines and the Army. They were sending people to different branches. And
based on their strengths or just anything?
Just on their whim or their needs, probably their needs more than anything else. So by actually joining up, I had some choices, and as a matter of fact, I had a couple of cousins that had been drafted. No, they were in a guard unit, I believe they were, and they went to their basic training down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and they came back with just horror stories from Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Really?
Because it was known as like Little Vietnam, and it just swamps and yuck and swamps.
Oh, I could only imagine in Louisiana.
So I thought, well, man, when this recruiter told me that the agency that I was joining up in only had about 4 or 5 places around the country that they sent their Army Security Agency personnel to, and one of them was not Fort Polk. I said, okay,
that sounds better.
That's another incentive. So for my basic training, which is about a 2 or 3 month period, I was in 3-story brick barracks. We had to keep it nice and polished, and we had wax details, mopping and waxing details during the night. It was a crazy situation, but I had hot showers and had a good place to sleep. And we had like four guys to a room or something like that. So I know that I bettered myself by actually joining up for the basic training that I received.
Yeah. So you said you were a draftsman. What were you doing?
I was a draftsman. I was actually drawing. The company I was working for was drawing pressure vessels.
Oh.
For the oil industry. So these are the nice, big, tall carbon steel vessels that you see in a refinery. They do all kinds of different functions, but a lot of times they're actually separating the oil and processing the oil and making the gas products.
That's interesting. So before that, you just did you really have any idea what you wanted to do?
I had taken 2 years of mechanical drafting in high school.
Oh, okay.
So I had prepared myself pretty well for occupational skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I got out of college over there, after I spent 2.5 years of just floundering around, I did get on as a beginning draftsman. The pay was about $350 a month, not very much at all. But you got to realize that all the wages and everything back in the late '60s was pretty low.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't even know that they had that in high school back then.
They had mechanical drafting. You had metal shop and wood shop, and I'm sure a lot of people. And I took metal shop, and I did well in those courses.
I'm glad to see a lot of that coming back into schools.
Yeah, we have emphasized the degree thing in the United States, I think to a great extent, and we've downplayed the people who are actually out there doing the work.
Yes,
and getting the jobs done. The guy that's doing your air conditioning unit, the guy that's doing the plumbing. Sometimes those people are just as skilled as anybody that's in an office in downtown Dallas.
Absolutely.
And so we need to appreciate those and not downplay the fact that they're working in a manual job. The blue collar jobs are essential to America, and that's why we've lost so many manufacturing jobs to the third world countries.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I was talking to Martin, who owns Bon Air, the air conditioning.
Yes.
We were talking about whenever he was in school, he had to go to DeVry because they didn't have anything like that. So he took out a loan, went to DeVry to get his association. Now he's got these kids with the school district that can come and intern with him while they're still in school, because it's amazing how quickly COVID, like all these people in all the trades retired or passed away. And now you have this need for all these people that know how to work on cars and helicopters and airplanes. And so I'm glad to see that back. There's huge value in it. And Grand Prairie does it really well, I will say.
A lot of these young kids don't realize the role that the military can actually play in teaching you a trade.
Yes.
I mean, I mentored a young man that I met at a Sea Cadet meeting, and I ended up taking him hunting and fishing and that sort of thing. His mom was a single mom, and he loved to fish and he loved to hunt. So I ended up taking him to the deer lease and that sort of thing. And this young man, he joined the Air Force right out of high school, and I thought, well, but he did that, and man, he got in there and learned aircraft mechanics.
Oh yeah.
And so he's out. This was a number of years ago. Now he's out. He's building jet engines for a company, and actually in a lead role, for a shift. And so the guy's just doing great, and he's married, bought some acreage out in south of town. So it's doing great. And I just, people need to appreciate the people that are doing that.
I agree. Some of these kids are graduating from like DeBisky in the mechanics. They're getting paid at Lockheed for like 6 figures they're making right out of high school.
That's right, especially with the overtime and things that you can get at some of the government jobs.
Yes.
And so I mean, if your base pay or salary is 60 or 70 grand, then with overtime and everything, you might and bonuses you may exceed those 6 figures, right?
It's amazing. I'm hoping by fall I can have some interns from the district to help me work on this podcast.
Very good.
Well, one of the biggest things is, learning how to interview people that are your elected officials. I'd love to have them write, bring back the journalism skill,
right.
How to cover city council meetings and some of that stuff. It's an important thing to understand how your community works, how to write about it, to understand that you're part of a bigger group around you.
Right.
And, just to honor your community that way, I think is important.
Well, from an educational standpoint, let me make a plug for our Vietnam Veterans Group here in Grand Prairie. Right now, I'm a current president of the Chapter 1013, and every year we have an essay contest, and it's an essay contest for college scholarships. We give $1,000 for each one of the three essay winners.
Wow.
And so these essays and the essay scholarship contest is available to Grand Prairie ISD's seniors. And we give them a topic, and it's been for the last number of years, it's been to interview a Vietnam veteran. If they don't have one within their community or within their family or within their local contacts, we can actually provide one of those Vietnam veterans for them. They interview the veteran, well, let's tell their story and how that impacted them. We have a judging contest on those essays, and right now that's taking place right now because the deadline to getting in the essays is usually April 1st. So those essays have been received by our chapter, and they are actually being looked at by a committee of veterans. And when we select the winners, we ask the winners to come down and read their essays to one of our June meetings. And so that works out pretty well. And the parents are invited to come.
Oh, that's so neat.
So, and what it does, it gives the students, these kids that have, of course, some of these textbooks that you see, history textbooks, they may only give a half a page or just for the Vietnam War. And for our generation, for my generation, the one that you came in right behind me there, it was a big thing. It was a very big thing.
It was a very big thing.
We lost over 55,000 men and women over there doing that war. The worthwhile portions or aspects of that war may be debated, but we were over there. We were doing our part. We'd been called up by our fellow countrymen to do something, and those of us that served actually did that. So I'm proud of the fact that I actually served, and I actually went over there and did my thing. So.
Well, I would love to. When do y'all select a winner?
You want to come to that?
I'd love to.
You want to come to the reading?
I do. I would love to, but I'd also love to publish the winner's essay in the newsletter that goes out every month.
We'll see.
Even the top three, the finalists.
We'll see about that.
Yeah.
We've had this year. We had like 11 contests, 11 essays submitted. And we asked for just a 2-page essay. It's not a long essay because these kids that are submitting this is their senior year, and you know how busy a senior year can be. Those last 3 months of a senior year can be very busy. So trying to get in an interview with a veteran and then writing a 2-page essay that's worthwhile, it takes a little bit of time.
It does, yes.
And, they come in, and we have had some really good essays. We've had some really good essays in the past, and we've been doing this for about 8 or 10 years.
That's amazing. I love that idea.
It's a great idea.
Well, going back to something that you said, this is not the first time that I've come to the group for coming as the faces of Grand Prairie. When I worked in assisted living, I feel like when I spent that time working in the assisted living and the memory care side of things, working with seniors, we were getting out of the generation that had the World War II veterans and into the generation that had the Vietnam veterans. So we still had some World War II veterans, Korean veterans also, but we were getting into the younger generation that was coming into that type of living arrangement was the Vietnam veteran. And we did have a few at our community, and I really wanted them to be a part of what y'all were doing at Grand Prairie because There's not a Vietnam veteran chapter in every city. There's not. And so I took some of the veterans over there one night to participate in the chapter.
Right, you did.
And I got to visit with some of the wives.
Yes.
So I was in there talking to the wives while the gentleman got to go talk to you guys. So I feel like that period of time, if for nothing else, gave me a lot of insight into how Vietnam veterans were treated, how they still feel to this day, things I didn't know, and my parents have always been very big about pride in all of our military, but you could totally see a difference between the way that the World War II veterans were treated and the way that we looked on that war versus the Vietnam veterans. And it kind of broke my heart, honestly.
Vietnam veterans dribbled back into the country one and two at a time. They didn't come back. Most of them did not come back as units. You're over there for a year. You were put into a company or whatever. That company already existed. They were already there. Then you came back. Your life.
Did we lose the light?
They're turning out the
technical
lights.
difficulty. That's okay.
But you can still see us, right?
We can still see us, so we're good.
But anyway, it's a different deal. I mean, the World War II guys came back. They came back in battalions and companies and everything like this. So it was a different deal. And they came back victorious. We came back as maybe something less than victorious, but it was kind of a political thing as opposed to actually us winning the war. We actually won the Tet Offensive, but we lost it in the press.
Yeah. Well, that whole, if you look back on that decade, there's so much turmoil, the 60s specifically, but it's like there's such a response to that war, in the public eye. And I interviewed Dr. Alexander, who is with GPSD. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he doesn't talk too much, but he did when he shared with me in his episode. Just not a great reception from the public, which was unfortunate, very unfortunate.
And I mean, we've got veterans in our chapter that say that they were, when they came through the airports, they were actually spit on and that sort of thing. And now, Jenna, I did not have evidence of that when I came back. I came back. My parents met me at Love Field, and that was a pretty neat reunion.
I wonder if it had to do with when they came back, like at what point during the war when they returned.
Probably when they came back and through what city they came back.
Right.
A lot of processing was done through San Francisco. You had processing centers on the East Coast, and you may have had some on the West Coast. Most of them probably on the West Coast, being closer to Vietnam. But it's just amazing.
Well, and the other thing that kind of surprised me was when we talked about benefits. I learned that the government, like when it came to assisted living benefits and help with that kind of thing, there's a lot of parts of Vietnam. There was parts that some people didn't go to Vietnam, but they were considered a part of the Vietnam War. They weren't boots on the ground. That's a big phrase. I mean, talk about that for a little bit.
Well, your people that were in the Navy, they call the Blue Water Navy over there, which is out in actually the ocean, the oceans that surrounded Vietnam. And there's the Brown Water Navy. You had the Brown Water Navy actually ran up the rivers and everything with the little PT type boats and patrol boats. That was the Brown Water Navy. So the Brown Water Navy usually had some kind of a foot on. They had some base or foot on the ground, but the Blue Water Navy were out there, and but they were getting their drinking water, a lot of their drinking water from probably wells and everything that were actually in Vietnam, So and that was the thing. My area and my area that I was in was heavily defoliated by Agent Orange, those pesticide type things, to defoliate the rubber trees. My company was actually in a rubber tree plantation that was probably owned by the French. And so we had these tall 50, 60 foot trees that had been pretty much defoliated. A lot of it was dead and died. And so windstorm come around and just blow those trees right over.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Right over on our tents and everything. The high windstorm over there was almost as dangerous to us in the tents as it was in the artillery fire coming in on us. And we had a lot of artillery fire, artillery mortars and rockets, and that sort of thing. I was in the base camp for the 1st Air Cav Division, supporting them with the Army Security Agency. And we had, when I left over there, we'd had a fairly mild year, I thought. And they had a count of how many incoming rounds that came into the area. We had over like 2,000 rounds come in during that time frame in 1970, and I thought it was a pretty mild year compared to 69's because I was there for a year and a half, from about March of 69 through November of 70.
When did Well, and the other thing about it is, when did the Vietnam War actually begin? Because a lot of those people in the beginning, in the very early beginning, weren't considered a part of the war because it hadn't been declared, I think.
Yeah, it's about 64, 60,
Mm-hmm.
63, 64, sometime in that time frame. But the Vietnam people they'd been fighting. They fought the French for a long time, and the French kind of lost out in 1953 or 54, and then they had you had the North and the South kind of separated. The South wanted to become a democratic country, and the North was wanting to be communist. So then you had the infiltration units come in trying to get the South to be communist as well, and that's where the Americans came in and tried to help the South Vietnamese.
So when did it stop?
It stopped. We got out. The United States got out in about 73, but Saigon did not actually fall until 75.
So that war went on for 10 years.
Oh, it was a long time. Yeah, it was a long time. It was one of the longest wars we've had in the United States.
And then Korea was right before that, wasn't it?
Korea was a devastating war and an almost forgotten war, really.
Yes, it is. It is.
And we had some guys in our unit when we first started our Vietnam Veterans chapter in Grand Prairie. We had guys that were World War II veterans, Korean veterans, and Vietnam veterans. So if you're a 3-war veteran, that was pretty distinct.
Wow. Well, you had to have chosen to go back in at that point. You just stayed. You just went back in every time, or were some of them drafted?
They may have been career. They may have been career people, and if you're career military, then you go to whatever war's on you're during your time that you're actually enlisted. So some of those guys have been in the military for 20 or 30 years, and so if they got into the World War II late, which in most cases they had to be late on World War II to be
right
considered for the Korean and the Vietnam War, then they may have had from 45, 44, 45 until 60, 65, 68, whatever.
They could still.
Yeah.
And then Korea was in the 50s?
Korea was about 1950 to 53, so in it.
So not as long as the period of time as Vietnam, but which is why sometimes that it's forgotten.
It's forgotten.
So, like your chapter specifically, are you part of the founding of that chapter in Grand Prairie?
I am a founding member. I'm a charter member of our chapter. Right. We chartered in September 11th of 2008, 9/11.
Wow.
Of 2008. We'd been meeting for almost a year before we actually got chartered. You had to have you had to have 25 Vietnam veterans signing up and ready to form a chapter before you actually got everything started. And so by the time we got everything charted and submitted, we didn't get charted until September 11th of 2008.
And how many did y'all have?
We had 25 or 30 people. And so now our organization, we've got about 85, 87 members. And we have a meeting once a month, and those meetings are held at the Veterans Park Event Center on the second Thursday of every month. And so, except for Christmas, we may have a Christmas party somewhere else. But the last couple of years, we've been having this Christmas parties there at the Veterans Park Event Center, which is right adjacent to the main library there on Conover Street.
I just got to come.
You did. You did.
So how many chapters are there across the United States?
Across the United States, I don't know. In Texas, there's about 30, 35, 37 chapters.
It seems like for a war that lasted that long that there would be more chapters than that.
Well, and there's places in Texas. I mean, most of the chapters are in that corridor east of I-35. There's a handful of chapters that are out west of I-35. So, but most of the populated areas in Texas are along that I-35, I-45 corridor, from the Red River to the Gulf.
Did y'all have any trouble? Do people come? Do y'all have any trouble like getting members to come, I guess, to get them to participate?
People, our members will see a veteran with a veteran's cap on at a restaurant or something, and approach him and say, "Hey, we have these meetings, blah 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 blah. I'd like to meet you. You need to come to our meeting." It's a lot of word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
We've had garage sales for a number of years, and we have guys that come in and they'll see our veterans memorabilia, our caps and shirts and everything, and so they want to be a part of that. We also our chapter does do help with the Run for the Wall, which I don't know if you've heard for that, but the Run for the Wall is it's actually an organization now, but they do motorcycles. They start out in Southern California in the San Diego area, and they ride motorcycles all the way to Washington, D.C., to the Vietnam War Memorial there in Washington, D.C., and they make their trip the week preceding Memorial Day. So on Memorial Day, they do tributes there at the Vietnam War Memorial.
I bet that's something.
So we have 400 to 500 motorcycles that come in.
Wow.
The Grand Prairie ISD actually feeds them part of that at DeBisky.
Oh, really?
The DeBisky culinary students and the staff there at DeBisky do that. Sometimes the food is donated, or the cost of the food is donated, and so the students there at DeBisky actually cook for these guys. They come in on their motorcycles, and they make the run from Odessa, Texas, to Grand Prairie. And Grand Prairie is the stop there. Our Grand Prairie stop is more or less founded by Mary and Leo Han, and he's a veteran, Marine veteran, and they've kind of run that, but they've got kind of their own organization of members and everything that they do that with, and they just had a garage sale and earned some money for the Run for the Wall.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's a good excuse to get on a back motorcycle.
We have. I mean, it's men and women too.
Mm-hmm.
You got service dogs that are riding with the guys.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we have the city bends over backwards to help out on this event. The Run for the Wall. They actually have the citizens on patrol actually come out and actually escort a number of the motorcycle riders want to camp out with their motorcycles. They don't want the cost of a hotel or anything like that. So they camp out with their motorcycles, and they camp out at Lloyd Park.
Oh.
The city at Lloyd Park provides them 10 camping areas, 10 camping spots. And sometimes these guys will come in, their tent for a motorcycle, it's not a very big tent. It's usually just something small and something they pack up real quick and everything. Anyway, our veterans from our chapter actually spend the night out there and make sure that their motorcycles are intact. Nothing happens to the motorcycles, everything, while they're sleeping in their tents.
Oh, my goodness. So I had no idea that this was even happening.
Well, that's why you have this podcast.
Exactly. I just can't even believe it. How long has that been going on?
Well, that's been going on for probably 10 years.
Wow.
And the mayor speaks. Susan Hull was a great proponent.
Oh, well, she was a motorcycle rider herself.
She was a motorcycle rider herself. In fact, that was part of her way she went, was when she was on a motorcycle.
Yes.
And so, she was part of that. And so, I mean, we've had people with the school board that have come out and have spoken to the riders. And they have their own organization. They've got the road guards, they've got their chaplains, and most of them stay in hotels around I-20 area. But on the Sunday morning, after they've been in here on a Saturday, Sunday morning they all meet at the Walmart parking lot out down I-20. Mm-hmm. They all gather up. And again, the Run for the Wall people feed them oranges and rolls and breakfast tacos and that sort of thing. They have their own church service out there. They have a flatbed trailer they pull up out there, and they have their own church service out there. And the guys that want to stand around and listen to somebody that gives a short a short devotional type church service. So it's a great event. They send them off. You have people on Deckman, the Deckman that crosses I-20. You have people up there standing and waving flags.
That is so cool.
And this takes place. I think this year it's on May the 17th, I believe.
May the 17th. Okay, I'm gonna have to make a point to do that. I'm actually interviewing the new superintendent on May the 6th. Okay. So I'll make sure to mention that in the podcast.
Well,
because that's very neat.
GPISD has been so supportive. The city of Grand Prairie has been so supportive. The Parks, Arts, and Recreation Department has been very supportive. I mean, the Grand Prairie just opens their arms to these guys that are come through. And I mean, when you're talking about 400 to 500 motorcycles,
right?
I mean, that fills up the whole parking lot on the north side of Dubisky. You know how big that parking lot is. There in the automotive area. They fill up that whole parking lot. Dubisky, they feed them in there in the cafeteria, and you've got these old salty veterans in there with all their vests and patches and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, they've had a long ride. They've come in from Odessa. That's the longest. They have 3 routes across the United States. They have a southern and a central and a northern route, and they all start in San Diego. And so this leg from Odessa to Grand Prairie is the longest leg on the southern route, and it takes them a full week to get across the United States.
Wow,
on motorcycles.
That is very cool. I'm going to have to actually show up to that. I think I'll put it in the newsletter too, because I think that's very neat. So back to the meetings. What do y'all talk about? Do y'all have speakers? What do y'all do?
We have speakers, and you were our speaker just this last month, Jenna, and thank you for coming and speaking to our veterans. I think you got a good reception. I think you realized the kind of, I mean, what we try to do as an organization, we try to improve I guess what people perceive to be what the Vietnam veteran is. Not every Vietnam veteran is a homeless guy out there with a cup and asking for a handout, and somebody that just dropped out of society and is gone to drugs and everything. That's not all of us. The majority of us that came back, we plugged ourselves into family events, family and businesses. We had productive jobs. We did what we could, and we kept on trucking. A lot of people had injuries and things like that. A lot of us have had the PTSD and Agent Orange has bothered a lot of us, myself included. So anyway, we just keep on trucking.
Not to use a fictional movie as an example, but I mean, Forrest Gump was probably the first movie that I can remember where I saw 2 examples of a Vietnam veteran. You had the Forrest Gump who came back and did exactly what you just said. He plugged himself into the community and all that. And then you had the Lieutenant Dan's that came back and struggled. And but that was the first time that I can remember. Now, I didn't watch Born on the 4th of July or any of those because I was too young for that. But that's the first movie I remember watching where I got to see anything about the Vietnam War depicted in a movie.
Some of those, they heighten the combat part of it. You got to realize, I'm not taking away from those guys who are out there in the boonies, but there's only probably about 1 out of 10 Vietnam veterans who are actually out there in a combat role. For every person who's actually out there walking into the jungles and face to face with Charlie, you had 8 or 9 people supporting him, and either the airports and the logistics. The logistics of keeping people out in the field is pretty astounding. The airports and the Navy and everybody, the Air Force, everybody associated with that, it becomes a big operation. Big operation.
Yeah, that's something you definitely don't think about, and it definitely a movie that you're watching is going to have is a point of view that's going to try to be portrayed in that movie. So
it's not to say that those don't get their point across.
Right. Well, and I came across a few just in my own experience whenever I was either calling potential residents that might want to move in to, if they were a Vietnam vet, some of them were very willing to even provide documentation. Like if you were trying to get some of your long-term assistance to actually live in a community,
Right.
you had to provide documentation so that
Right.
you could get that all verified. Some of them didn't want to provide any of that. They didn't even know where it was. It was very difficult for a few that I talked to even talk about that they were in the war.
The exit paper for any veteran is the DD Form 214.
Yes.
And that's you don't want to lose it.
No, you do not.
You can get a replacement, but you have to go through a song and dance to do that. But that's the gospel for you, and it contains what you did, where you served, the rank that you attained, the dates that you're actually in the service, and where you're inducted at, where you got out of the service. It's got all that information right there on just like one piece of paper.
And I was surprised that some of them just completely went up in a fire. Wasn't there a huge fire?
There was a fire. There was a fire at the national organization there, that the veterans organization, and some of those things were lost. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
So to join is there a membership cost or?
There's a membership cost. It used to be about $150 to join the Vietnam Veterans of America, but now it's down to $50 because the time that you have left on, if you're a Vietnam veteran, all of us are in our 70s and 80s right now. And so,
hey, that's prime.
So right now, yes, right now it's only $50 to join for lifetime. $50 for lifetime. Our Grand Prairie chapter has no dues. We rely upon gifts and different monies coming in from different organizations. Lone Star Foundation supports us very well. We've got other organizations, the Rotary clubs support us very well. And they do this on their day of giving or their time that they actually do that sort of thing. So that helps. We do have some raffles at times. We do have the garage sales, and so COVID kind of took a big hit on everybody too. Not wanting to get together, and especially if you're in the age that we were, we didn't want to get out and be mingling with everybody. So that took a hit on our organization.
Well, I'll make sure in the link to the episodes to put the link to your give, because I think it's on your website. If people want to donate, I'll make sure to put that. But when you came back, what did you end up doing for a career when you got back?
I got back and I ended up jumping. The law was at that time that if you were drafted and you were working for a company, you had to be able to leave during the time that you were drafted. But the company that you were working for at the time that you were drafted was responsible for accepting you back and hiring you back.
Oh, really?
And so I went back to the same company that I was working for, and I'd started at $350 a month, which sounded like just nothing. But when I got back, and I thought, man, how am I going to make it on $350 a month? Because I got married 3 days after I got out of the military. But I got back and I went into that company, and they said, okay, we're going to give you a raise. We're going to give you $500 a month.
Oh, so nice. Okay.
I did, while I was down at Fort Hood, I did take a course down there for postal work. They had a course down there for postal work. And so I made a real high grade on that postal test. And so I was ready to come back and maybe do something like that. And I might have if this other job had not come back. So I ended up doing that. And I worked in that capacity for a number of years, into the engineering, worked for paper companies, I worked for St. Regis Paper Company, and it was a big paper company for a while over in Dallas. I worked for Deutsche Babcock, which is an engineering company over in the Plano area. But in 1996, I got on with Vault. I got on with Vault Aircraft in 1983. Late 1982, I got on as a contract person out there, and in '83 I got on full time. So situation was my wife got cancer. My first wife got cancer. The wife that I'd married 3 days after I ever got out of Vietnam, out of the military, because I was down in Fort Hood for a while. But she died of cancer in 1983. And
did you? I mean, can I assume that you knew her before you went?
I did not know her before I went to Vietnam.
So how did y'all meet each other?
My sisters both. One of my sisters was heavily involved with the Baptist Student Union there at UTA, and my other sister was going over there, and she was involved in a sorority, Zeta Tau Alpha, and so this one sorority sister and BSU member was somebody that they thought I needed to meet. So I said, okay. So I mean, I was primed to come back and meet some girls when I came back to Vietnam. So I did not leave any rock unturned, you know.
Did y'all exchange letters while you were gone, or did you not meet her until you got back?
I did not meet her until I got back. I was actually stationed down at Fort Hood.
In 3 days? You got married?
No. When I got back from Vietnam,
I
was stationed. I had to be stationed because my enlistment was not up yet.
Okay, gotcha.
I signed up for 3.5 years. I was only in Vietnam I signed up for 4 years. I was only in Vietnam for 1.5 years.
Oh, okay.
So when I got out of Vietnam, I had to be stationed down at Fort Hood.
I see.
And so when I got down to Fort Hood, I was able to come back and forth to Grand Prairie. It's 162 miles exactly from Fort Hood to Grand Prairie. And so I was able to make dates and everything during the week, and then actually go on those dates when I got back. And so I was making up for lost time. I was making up for lost time.
So she wasn't the only one that you were that you had gone on dates with.
I think 1 year I bought 7 dozen roses for Valentine's Day.
That's why you needed to make more money than $350 a month.
Well, there you go, Jenna. Now, there's probably going to be somebody listening to these podcasts going, "Oh, that's where that went."
They're like, Ray Jean, I know that name. He bought me some roses back in the no.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was one of 7.
He told me he loved me. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the way it works. Man.
So your first wife passed, and so
she died in 1983 of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And she had about 2 or 3 years of cancer type things, and so it got to her in summer of 1983.
Did y'all have any children together?
We had adopted 2 children from Buckner Baptist Benevolences.
Oh,
we had a daughter and we had a son, and so both of them are still living and doing their things.
And then, how long did it take you to get remarried?
I met the lady that I married my second wife. I married. She was at my doctor's office, and I went in and I met her. I knew the lady at the desk. No, she was actually my wife. Lady that was become my wife. She was actually at the desk. I knew the nurse. I've been working with the nurse forever, but some reason I had to go in on a Saturday morning or something. And here's this cute gal at the reception desk. So I get back into the nurse, and I said, "Who is that cute gal out there at the desk?" She said, "Kathy? You mean Kathy, my daughter?" I go, "Oh no."
That's hilarious.
So we got married. We were married 13 years, and then we went through a divorce. And so we didn't have. She had 2 children. She had a girl 16 and a son 13, and so we had kind of a blended we had a Brady Bunch.
Mm-hmm.
We had a 6-bedroom, 2-story house over there in East Dallas around White Rock Lake. And so that worked out okay for 13 years.
And when did you move back to Grand Prairie?
I moved back to Grand Prairie after that divorce. I thought, because I'd been driving from East Dallas to Vaught Aircraft,
right,
for a number of years, and I thought, man, if I'm going to move back to Grand Prairie, if I have to get married again, it's going to be somebody local over here. So.
Yeah. Hey, at least it's better than 162 miles you were driving back and forth.
That's right. I tell you, that 162 miles was going back on Sunday evening after I'd had dates and stuff, and kind of burned the candle at both ends for Saturday and Sunday. It was. I was fighting fatigue going back sometimes.
Well, you haven't slowed down. You're still a part of a lot of things, even to this day.
Jenna, I am, and I'm lucky to do that. It seems to be taking its toll, but I'm doing it. I'm not only involved in the Vietnam Veterans of America chapter in Grand Prairie, but I'm also involved with the Crisis Response Ministries, which is the yellow shirts that you see around supporting the police and the fire responders.
Oh, with Glenn Cato?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a chaplain. With that organization, and I work heavily out with the DART personnel. The DART people, they've kind of adopted me as their chaplain over there at DART. DART, at the time that I started doing that, they had as many people in the DART police department over there as what Grand Prairie had in its police department.
Wow.
So I didn't realize that, but DART covers everything from Rowlett and Carrollton all the way to, South Dallas area. So it's a big area. So
did you get into ministry at some point, or how did you become a chaplain?
I'm actually a Baptist deacon as well. And some of the things that I mentioned, somebody's going, how did he get to be a deacon and have done all those things? But grace of God.
Hey, deacons have lives before they become deacons,
Grace of God. I became a deacon at East Grand Baptist Church over in East Dallas. And my first wife, Karen, was a pianist over there for the church. So I was there Sunday and Wednesday. I was there, every time the doors were open, I was usually there. So became a deacon and very instrumental. I played softball with that church twice a week on the end of summer, and so I was heavily involved with the Baptist church over there. And
so when you moved here, is that when you found? Because you and I go to church together. We go to First Baptist. Yes. So when did you start over there?
My current wife, Verna, and you've met Verna.
Mm-hmm.
Very very wonderful gal. She is she's from Alvarado, Texas, and I met her in a singles group at Lake Arlington Baptist Church.
We need a singles group at our church. I tried to kind of start this last year, and it takes a lot of effort and energy. But anyway, I digress.
Well, anyway, that's where I met her, and we've been married now for over 25 years. So it's been a good ride, and that's anyway. Met her, and we got married within a year or so after I met her, and we got married in 1998 or 9.
When I graduated high school.
Yeah, there you go.
And so, but at First Baptist, you do something very cool because you have another event coming up with that group.
Yes, we do, and. I just helped them build the church that they did on the parking lot. I did that, and so I've just been doing a lot of things. This April and May is just going to be a wash because I've been so busy.
Mm-hmm.
But I do take the guys at First Baptist Church. I organize, and I've done this for 10, 12 years. I organize a striper fishing trip to Lake Texoma. We go up there with the guides, and I've got one master guide that we work with, and normally we take up anywhere from 18 to 25 guys up there fishing.
Wow!
And usually we have a fish fry, Usually we have a fish fry on Sunday night. We go up there on Sunday afternoon, have a fish fry on Sunday night, meet the guides the next morning, go out and catch a bunch of stripers. They clean the fish and get them all ready to process them, put them in Ziploc bags, and we bring them back and do our cooking that day, our individual cooking. Everybody, so everybody goes, "What is a fish fry?" Well, everybody cooks their own fish. They don't submit their stripers to a free for all. But it's a good thing, and it's a fellowship. It's really a fellowship ministry because you get in the boat. What we do is we don't have given boats for the particular guide that you're going to go with, because there might be some fights for a particular guide. So if you just have these 20 guys come up and they say, "Okay, here's the boat, let's go get in the boat," well, you might have a fight. So what we do, I actually put their names on a piece of paper, and I have the guides actually draw the names for the guys they're going to be fishing with. So that makes it it's a
very fair system.
So yeah, and when you do that, you end up in the boat with a lot of guys that you don't necessarily rub elbows with there at the church.
Right.
And so that gets the co-mingling, and that gets the fellowship going. And so it's a good deal. We have a devotional after we have the fish fry. This year, here's another thing I do, and I could have worn any 4 or 5 different shirts up here today, Jenna. I've actually got my Vietnam veterans shirt on, but I could have worn a Prairie Sound shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I could have worn a CRM shirt. I could have worn a number of different shirts, but we do have the what was I talking about?
The Prairie Sounds.
Well, we're having the Prairie Sounds thing, and we're having Praises Across the Prairie, which is taking place on 6:30 at the First Baptist Church on May 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a neat event, a musical event that's going to be God inspired, God led. It's a worship type event, and so anybody's welcome to come.
Yes, that's
Grand
a free.
Prairie.
Yep.
The invitation is out to anybody, and it's going to last for about an hour and a half. My group Prairie Sounds is going to have 4 or 5 songs we're going to be singing at that event, and it should be pretty good.
What instrument do you play?
I don't play anything. I just sing.
You're the singer.
I just sing, and this is something that I haven't been a singer all my life. I just been doing this about 10 or 15 years, maybe.
Wow.
That's it.
Well, when y'all play, it's like we can't help but clap. It's one of those kinds. So if you like that kind of music, because you'll have a banjo player, you
That's
have
right.
that. So it's fun.
That's
it really
right.
is fun.
Joel Salazar, our minister of music at First Baptist Church, he heads this group, and we've got a banjo player. We got a couple of people playing guitars, and we got a bass player. And at the Praises Across the Prairie, we'll have some drummers, some backup singers. We'll have a fiddle player in there. We'll have some other instruments in there to just more or less round out the sound, and it's going to be really good. When Joel puts his mind to do these kind of things, they usually go off pretty well, and we expect the same kind of results there on May 4th.
So you have a reunion on May 3rd. And then you have a concert on May 4th.
And the thing is, we're going down to, I'm with the Prairie Sounds, and we have this mission trip that we go down to South Texas. We're going to, this next Wednesday, we're leaving about 6 o'clock in the morning. We're going down to Southeast Texas. Joel and Bill Scar, our pastor, actually, they were at church together down in
I can't remember what city either.
Livingston, Texas. And so we're going to go back in that area. We're going to be singing at, I believe, a church there at Bishop, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to be spending Wednesday through Saturday on this mission trip. I get back from that mission trip. We're going to be singing at about 6 different places.
Oh my goodness.
A couple of churches, 2 or 3 churches, and 2 or 3 retirement senior citizens living areas. So anyway, I think we sing 3 or 4. Our particular group sings at 3 or 4 songs at each location. Our serendipity choir will be singing 3 or 4 songs, and our dulcimers, our sweet strings, are going to be playing, and so they will all be involved. I think in the praises across the prairie as well. So it's going to be a neat event. But anyway,
you have got so many things going on.
Jenna, I get back from that on the 27th. On the 26th, Saturday the 26th, and the 27th is when we go to Texoma, our fishing trip.
Oh my goodness!
And then we've got the next weekend is the Gopher reunion on May 3rd. And then the next day is the next Sunday is the concert there at First Baptist Church at 6 o'clock.
And then on the 17th, you have the ride, the motorcycle ride.
That's right.
And then Memorial Day is at the end of May. And in the middle of that, you're also picking essay winners for your scholarship.
That's right. And I'm right now I'm not really involved in making and judging we've said our officers. The officers need to back away from this. Our membership needs to actually judge these essays. So we've done that. So thank God I don't have that on my plate right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I am working with the Gopher Reunion Committee heavily with that. I'm working on the Run for the Wall type stuff. I'm making sure that's kind of intact. Memorial Day is coming up.
Yes.
And I do the reading of the names. One of our members does the ringing of the bell. So we'll do that on Memorial Day, and that takes place at 10 o'clock, and I believe that's on May the 26th, on Monday, May the 26th, and that's at the Veterans Memorial there, right there at the main library, right there adjacent to the Veterans Park Event Center. So if you're a patriot in Grand Prairie,
mm-hmm.
come on out and be a part of us, because it's a great event. This year they're going to have a flyover.
Oh,
they put a roof over. They put a star-shaped roof over the seating area, and now we're going to have another flyover. So the people won't be able to see the flyover from the roof, but that's all right. It's be a good thing.
That's awesome. So
Grand Prairie does a lot to honor its veterans.
Yes, it does.
Grand Prairie does a good job.
Yes, it does. I definitely agree with that. I'll make sure to put in the description all of those things that the public is invited to that you're doing. And because that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, is because Memorial Day is coming up, and I want to make sure that I honored the veterans by, having you come.
This event that we're talking about, the Memorial Day, Jenna, we usually have 200 to 400 people out there honoring the veterans, and they enlist a speaker, a very qualified speaker, may speak for 15-20 minutes or so. They have a bagpipe guy that leads in the procession, coming in the city council members and the park board members and any other dignitaries that are with us that day will be part of the procedural or process comes in processional. And then they sit up on stage and they do this twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
They do this on Memorial Day, and they do this also on Veterans Day in November.
Are they putting out the flags here for both of those days?
They put out the flags, and Bill Mosher with his scouts here in Grand Prairie, they do a good job of putting out the flags for us. That's great.
That's awesome. I just came from a ribbon cutting where he was there. And he was wearing his red, white, and blue suit with his cowboy hat.
Yeah.
So they'll put those out for Epic Central also.
I don't know if they do that here. I don't know who does that. But they do put out the flags at the memorial.
And I will also say Honor Guard Flags is actually, I called Jonathan. He's a friend of mine. He owns Honor Guard Flags. And I said, hey, I'm doing this upcoming episode. Would you like to sponsor it? And he said, yes. And so there's going to be a commercial that comes out here because this episode will come out on April the 30th. So if you are a resident who wants to order a flag to have in your own yard for Memorial Day, that they come out for 4 different days. It's Memorial Day, July 4th, Veterans Day. I don't know what the other one would be. There's 4 different days. So you pay a subscription, and it's very affordable. They come out, put the flag in your own yard, which I'm getting one, and then they'll come and pick it back up. So
probably Flag Day, July 4th.
Yes.
Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
That sounds right. Yep. That sounds right. So, and so if you're a neighborhood, president of an HOA, or if you're, it's a great opportunity to show your own patriotism in your own yard also.
People that do put out these flags, they need to be aware, Jenna, that if they do put out a flag, if they keep it out overnight, it needs to be lit. It needs to be lit up. It needs to be lighted.
Good to know.
And try not to display a flag that's battered or teared or any kind of misshapen flag or wear or anything. And I believe Bill Mosher as well does flag retirement. They do a burning of the flag and they have a ceremony to do that. So if you've got an old flag, they can actually do that for you. And the Boy Scouts do that and do a good job. And he's very, very instrumental in helping those in there.
I'm glad that you said that, because I have a flag that I always have a flag on the front of my house, but I live in a kind of a wind tunnel street, and that flag just took a beating. And so it's in my shed. I've wrapped it up, and I'm like, you don't know how to get rid of it, because I'm like, I know that there's a process, but.
I was down in East Texas with a friend of mine down in a very rural area of East Texas. I mean, out into nowhere. And this friend took me by an old worn down, dilapidated house, an old frame house that was out in the middle of the sticks. And we're kind of walking around this house. I mean, that's dangerous because you got nails and insects and snakes and all that kind of stuff. But I looked down on the ground there, and there's this American flag on the ground, and rained on and weathered and just going to pots. It looked like it had been there forever. So I picked it up. and brought it home. And this friend of mine, who has actually passed away the last 3 or 4 years, he told me that house was the home of a couple of veterans, and these are Soul Brother veterans, and I just know that the flag had stories behind it, and you just don't know those stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought it home, and Verna actually took the flag and rejuvenated it and sewed a couple of white stars on it and got it looking somewhat decent. So it is not a perfect flag, but it is. I know that it's got memories to it, memories that I don't necessarily know all about, but I do revere that flag.
But do you fly it, or is it folded?
It's folded. It's folded. My dad's flag. My dad was a veteran as well in the Army Air Corps in World War II, and his flag is sitting on my gun case. Folded up in one of those triangular cases. So I had a number of uncles at that time. My uncles were World War II age, and so my mother had one of my grandparents had 9 kids, and the other set of grandparents had seven children. So
wow,
that's my mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a whole cadre of aunts and uncles. It's wonderful, loving family. Wonderful, loving family.
Wow. Well, Ray, I just want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your service to the country, and I want to thank you for your service now, because you know what? I think that there's a testament to continuing to serve all the way through until God has you on this earth, until he takes you home. And I just really appreciate everything that you do. You don't have to do all the things that you do, but you do. And I know that you've influenced a lot of people's lives, and you've been a good, I love talking to you. I always take that opportunity when I can. So
well, thanks, Jenna.
Yes.
I do have to make kind of a last minute postscript here.
Sure, please.
I mentioned my bad academics early on in this program. In 1996, DBU actually came over to Vault Aircraft, and they did kind of a handshake thing with them where they could actually offer classes on site there at Vault, and that these would be good credit classes, and you could actually work towards your degree. I did that, and so in year 2000, 35 years after I graduated in 1965, I got an undergraduate degree.
Wow, from DBU?
From DBU. And so 2 years later, I plugged into the master's program. And so I got my MBA in 2007. Now, I retired from Vault in 2008, from an engineering level. But, I worked on the B-2 bomber. I worked on the space shuttle. I worked on a number of different things out there. I did the best with what I had, and I made the most of it. But I ended up graduating MBA with a 3.97 GPA. So I'm not the dummy.
Wow.
I'm not the dummy that I may have alluded to earlier.
So, I mean, I'm glad that you said that, and I know that we're getting to the end of this, but I would love to know what drives you to do things like that. Because there's definitely a difference when I see people that are just driven for whatever reason to accomplish things. Where do you think that comes from for you?
Well, it's pretty much a witness type thing.
Mm.
I got back from the war in 1972. Got out of the service and spent 18 months in Vietnam. I was living in East Dallas, and I hadn't changed my voter registration in the spring of 1972. They were having an election, primaries. I had to come back to Grand Prairie. That's where my residence was. That's where my voter registration was. So I had to come back to Grand Prairie to vote in the primaries for the 72 election. And I had a motorcycle at that time. I had a Kawasaki, a 350 Kawasaki, but my wife that I'd only had for a month or so, she was concerned that I would get on the old toll road here in Grand Prairie and going through Grand Prairie and actually drive over here at 70 miles an hour and that sort of thing. She didn't want me to be doing that. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go down through downtown Dallas. I'll just go down through downtown Dallas and come back on Jefferson and Division or Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. Well, going back, and I came over here and did my voting thing, did what I needed to do. I went back, and as I was going back, I was going by on Main Street, and I was Main Street and Elm, kind of right there. But I was on one of those streets over there, and they kind of split right there. If you're going east, they split Main Street and Commerce, and I was wanting to go on Commerce Street, and so. Anyway, I'm going along there, and this car comes up and hits me from the side. This car comes up and hits me from the side. Now, I have to do a kind of a backup because this car just hit me. But backing up to the night before, my first wife was a strong Christian influence from her. She had Hodgkin's when she was 17. She lived through that. They caught it early. She was a devout Christian. That's one of the reasons why we connected so well, because she was a Christian, I was a Christian. She read the Bible pretty good. Now, I had my own Bible. I had my Bibles in Vietnam, but one night she was actually reading the Bible in bed, and I'm laying there, thinking when she's going to turn the light on type thing, but she's reading the Bible, and I said, and I kind of like to just turn to the Bible and pick a verse and see how it applies to me, right? Well,
you just explained about 90% of Christian readers of the Bible. Yeah.
I said, okay, I thought I'd pick a New Testament book, and I'd pick an early chapter, and I'd pick an early verse, and I said, how about Ephesians 2:8? And so she read it, and she was reading from the Living Bible, the old green Living Bible that so many people bought and had back in the 70s. And so that says, because of his kindness, you've been saved through trusting Christ. And even trusting is not of yourself. It too is a gift from God. At least any man should boast. And God planned years ago that you should spend this life in helping others. So, and that extends it down to several verses, 8, 9, and 10.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, well, how does that apply to me? How does that apply to me? Well, the next day I get hit by this car on my motorcycle, and I had a fear of that happening, and I thought, how am I going to survive that? Well, that car hit me, and I was able to maintain my connection with the car. He hit me, and he was slowing down. I was probably only going 20, 25 miles an hour. I was going pretty slow because it was going right to the downtown in that area where President Kennedy got shot.
Mm-hmm.
So we were right there in that area, and this guy had 2 gals in the car in the front seat with him, and I'm sure they made a last minute decision to pull over into my lane to try to get to where they were going. So we drove side by side. My motorcycle pushed up against his car for probably a period of 30 or 40 yards, maybe not that far, but it seemed like it. And all of a sudden I was able to pull away, and he pulled out in the middle of Commerce, and he stopped, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I'm kind of looking around, and I've got my mirror that was on my motorcycle. It was pushed in because I'd been pushed up, and my ankle was a little bit sore from having ridden against that car for that length of time and pressuring. And the reason I was doing that because I didn't know if I could pull into the adjacent lane or not, because I couldn't look back and see the traffic, anything behind me. I was trying to deal with the car that was right here next to me. So I realized I had just been hit by a car. I did not have any damages at all to me, and at that point I didn't realize I didn't remember what that verse said that she had read. That my wife had looked up, at my request, she looked up and read that verse. But I didn't remember the verse. I didn't remember the verse that I said. And so I had to go back and look at that. And because of his kindness, you've been saved through trusting Christ.
Mm.
And then you asked me what keeps me going. The last part of those 2 or 3 verses is that you should spend your life in helping others. So those verses are on the inside of my ring.
Oh my goodness. What an amazing story. Just picking a verse to hear how it applies to you.
At the time that it was read, I thought, how does that apply to me? Well, it applied to me. It was God's reminder.
Yes.
It was God's reminder that I had just come through 18 months of in Vietnam in a combat zone that had rockets and mortars happening every night. And I lived through that unscathed. I didn't have any mental issues. I didn't have any physical issues. I was able to come back and step right into society and do what I had to do. So that's part of my life, Dale. And sometimes you just have to get emotional about things.
Yes.
And you get that way.
Yes.
I'm 77. What can I do between now and the time that I go? Look at what Ruthie Jackson did till she was 90 something. Right?
Well, you picked the epitome of purpose. But you know what? I'm going to clip this whole part out and make it its own separate video, because I think that kids need to understand what purpose feels like and what it looks like. You're going to make me cry. we have a lot of teenage kids that don't know what their purpose is. And I hope that they can hear this and understand that.
Well, they wash around in the society, and to the most part, we're not giving our kids enough responsibilities.
That's true.
To know exactly where they are and where they are in life, and how they can actually interact and be a part of life. We protect them to a certain degree and not giving them those things and thinking we're going to make it easy for them. We'll make it easy for them at an early stage is going to make it harder for them at a later stage.
I completely agree. And they get to a point where they don't know what to do. And helping others, I just posted a Facebook post. Are we friends on Facebook? I can't remember if we are or not.
I've probably befriended you.
No, you did not. I had to start my profile over. I literally just posted a week ago. Helping others is the purpose. It will get you out of depression. It will stop you from thinking only about yourself. Getting up and doing something for other people is
all you have to do as a veteran to realize just how lucky you are.
Mm-hmm.
Is to step into a VA hospital. That's all you have to do, Jenna.
Sure.
You see those veterans that have not made as successful a transition back into civilian life as what perhaps you have, or perhaps they came through the war with frailties and injuries and everything that some you can see, some you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real challenge to do that. I know and you mentioned you're working with the veterans there at your retirement homes and stuff, and I appreciate that. And most all the different retirement homes that we sing at, we play at, and stuff. I like to tell everybody our group we like to sing at these retirement homes because they can't see or hear us. You know.
You pick a good audience that won't be judgmental.
but these retirement homes, most of them have pictures of the veterans that are in their community on the wall somewhere. Some bulletin board somewhere along the halls. They've got pictures of the veterans that are there in their facility.
Yep.
So that's a good.
We did, and it was I loved seeing it. But I'm glad that you share. I'm glad I asked that last question. That's an amazing story.
Well, I didn't mean to be teared up in this thing, but there's times in your life when you can get to the emotional state and actually show it. You saw McElroy doing that on the green there, on the 18th green there, just this last Sunday.
That's true.
At the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Something that he'd been working his whole life to attain, and he finally made it. I know how blessed I am, but there's still challenges in life. Because of my faith, I can step through those challenges, and I can help others. And whether it's taking a bunch of church guys on fishing trips, or whether it's praying with a fireman or a policeman, some of our first responders. It's just at this point, it's what I'm doing, and I'm glad that I'm able to do it, and I'm glad that I can share that with the people of Grand Prairie.
I really need to have you and Glenn back on to talk about the chaplain services, the first responders. That's an amazing mission.
It is, and you've got some good people in there.
Yes,
and we could use a lot of good people. I've been asked to say the thing on May 7th. I'm going over to the DART headquarters in Dallas, and I'll be giving the opening prayer for their National Police Week. They have an observance of the National Police Week, and one of our other chaplains will be giving the closing prayer. So I'll be doing that May 1st. I'll be giving a prayer with Pastor Billy Webb down at the Liberty Bell. We have the National Day of Prayer down there on May 1st.
Oh my goodness.
May 1st. Is that May 1st?
May 1st is a Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
First Thursday in May is the National Day of Prayer.
That is impressive that you knew that. You're keeping all these dates in your head.
I get offered an opportunity, and it's hard to turn down an opportunity. But when I get one, I have to go back and look at my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife's got her whole calendar that she's doing, and we have to make sure that everything's going. Like I said earlier in this podcast, April and May is just going to be a flash.
It's just flashing.
Just going to be a flash for me, Jenna.
I just found my daughter. This is my calendar. These are just notes on the back of it. But I told my daughter, I said, listen, we just had this conversation. You need to get and make sure that every time that you commit to something, you have to put it in a calendar, because I can't remember all these things off the top of my head.
That's right.
If you have to be at school at a certain time, all that stuff. Talking about responsibility. Yeah. So, well, I'm just so grateful that you came on. You're an amazing man.
Thank you, dear.
Yes, it was my pleasure. It was my pleasure.